Hayden Locke, CEO of Marimaca, mate, thank you so much for coming to Rapallo. What do you think of the Italian Riviera?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Second time. I missed last year.
Yeah, that's
unfortunately.
right. Last year you had to send your number 2.
I did. Lucky little young fella that he was.
Yeah, well now you know what it's like. You'll be back next year.
100%. Every year from now on if I get invited, of course.
You're always invited. My casa, mi casa, su casa. Come back next year.
Very good.
Mate, you're looking well. You've had a busy year at Marimaca. You've welcomed not 1 but 2 strategic investors. Tell us about those and what they see in Marimaca.
Well, the first was Mitsubishi, which is quite a boon for us as a company because I think they're the preeminent Latin copper investor, and I think it took the market by surprise, the fact that Mitsubishi would consider an investment in a project which is, like Marimaca, much smaller than what they typically invest in. I think it's a reflection, firstly, of the quality of the asset, and the team that we've put together have done a great job. But I think secondly, and it really speaks to the reason why I'm so excited about copper in the future, is there are just no investable copper projects in the short term that can come in and fill that supply deficit that we all think is coming in the next 5 to 10 years. So, the second one was Açor. Really happy to have them on board. Obviously sad to see Tembo go because they've been a great shareholder, but they're at the end of the fund life on that investment, and so they couldn't stay around for the next phase. And so, you know, they partnered with Açor, and Açor is a great new investor for us. Slightly different to Mitsubishi. They're, you know, they've got a long track record in mining, but it's a privately held, family-owned business. Very long-term horizon.
They're serious miners.
They are serious miners. They've got a 100-year mining track record in Africa, and they're looking to expand outside of the continent. So,
now, is that the same Açor that have the lithium asset in Ghana?
Yes, Atlantic Lithium.
Yeah.
They're the biggest investor in Vision Blue, which is Mick Davis's
I didn't
fund.
know that. Okay.
They also have a big stake in Gemfields, and they're gradually expanding outside of the continent.
So they're building a mining house, for want of a better word.
That's it. They're looking to invest their cash flow, which they make a significant amount of cash flow.
And do they want to ultimately own all of Marimaca, or they're happy being a strategic shareholder? What's the end game now?
They're not an operator, although they could be an operator. They certainly have the capability to do that, but they're not looking to be an operator. What they're looking to do is try to build significant minority stakes in the commodities that they like outside of the African continent to expand. Yeah, they're very focused on manganese and iron ore and chrome at the moment. They're just looking to expand into what they call the future-facing metals. I think the things we always talk about.
And and presumably they could have gone anywhere in the world. Why do you think they chose Marimaca specifically?
I think it's the quality of the asset. I think they have done a lot of work looking at assets, and logically they would have looked at African copper assets, but I think again it reflects just how difficult it is to find really standout assets at the current commodity price. There are lots of assets that could be built at $5 or $6 a pound copper, but not very many that can be built in the $3.50 to $4 range. So they reviewed a lot of assets, and they liked the vision that we had for taking this project forward and becoming a copper producer.
Mate, when I look at your presentation for our little conference here tomorrow, you talk about outrunning the Lassonde curve. I mean, Pierre Lassonde famously says that when you're at feasibility stage, it's the valley of death. How do you do that? Is it about exploration or what?
It's a big challenge, and you're absolutely right. Well, I think it's shifted a little bit, and I think there has been a meaningful change, at least from my perspective. Now investors really want to see you making progress. It's no longer can you sit and drill and wait for somebody to come and buy you. You've got to make meaningful progress towards becoming a producer. It is probably the biggest challenge we face in the boring but necessary phase that we're going through at the moment. So our strategy is to continue to march the project forward as quickly as we can, but in parallel with that we are focusing back on exploration to say the exploration is not dead on Marimaca. There's still plenty of upside. We're not going to spend a huge amount of money, but we're going to continue to test targets and try to find complementary resources that come in and can potentially extend the mine life or even displace some of our lower grade material at Marimaca. So that's our strategy, to try and create some excitement around it, and we'll see how it plays out in the next 6 months.
And you're going to build it, not sell it?
Well, I think what I say to the board and to our investors is I'm completely agnostic as to whether or not we build or sell. I'd love to build it because it's an amazing asset, and we know each other from my days at Papillon. What I realise is it's very rare to find an asset that can actually become a profitable mine and you know, allow financiers to come in and say, yeah, we're going to underwrite that. Marimaca is one of those assets. So from our perspective as a team, we're focused on doing everything we can to go and build it. Whether we will or won't, it will be driven by our shareholders and whether somebody comes in and makes them an offer that is better than the alternative, which is us building it. So the plan is to build it.
And so, Hayden, between now and you're back in Rapallo next year, permanent invitation to the Arlington Rapallo, what do you see as the steps that will unlock shareholder value over that next year?
So in parallel to exploration, I think the really big thing, the catalyst that will be the change for us is, number one, permitting. Permitting is the biggest risk to all mining projects these days. We know it. There's a lot of problems that occur in the permitting. So we're focused on permitting. Ideally, we will have visibility on that by around this time next year. So sort of October time next year.
Does that mean permitted, or?
We should have our environmental approval. In terms of our internal timelines, we should have our environmental approval, which then is really the main catalyst for starting the process.
Right.
We're running our debt financing process, and the goal here is to be Q4, that we have a credit-approved debt term sheet subject to docs. We're permitted, and really the last piece is to go out and raise the capital. Right. And at that point, I think investors go, okay, this is a real project. These guys are really intending on going to build it, and our plan A will be to build it. And if somebody wants to come in and own it, well, they're more than welcome to make our shareholders an offer.
And what's the capital to build it, and what's your equity funding gap now?
So we haven't done the DFS yet. It's going to be done at the end of this year, Q1. But our expectation is it'll be sub $500 million US dollars, which will place us in the bottom decile of copper projects globally. Certainly, on a capital intensity basis, will be industry leading.
Right.
In terms of financing, well, it's a very cash generative project, so it could probably take quite a bit of leverage. But my perspective on that is, you see a lot of development stage companies trip up in that ramp up period because they have too aggressive capital structure. So I'd say our equity gap will be somewhere in the 200 to 225 million US dollar range, something like that. The benefit of Assor and Itaki, the new investors, and Mitsubishi for that matter, is we have 3 shareholders between them that could underwrite the whole capital raise.
Right.
That's not the best strategy for us as a company, I don't think. I think we want to increase our free float.
Right.
So we will certainly partner with them to try and solve for that free float issue, but that'll be Q4 next year that we'll start to get into the real detail on that.
Good. Well, it's going to be an exciting year. Hayden, thanks for coming again. Looking forward to having a cocktail with you ASAP.
Thanks, Simon.